How come we've been? How come it's not getting any? How come we still? Cause I remember the last point you made was we still have a ways to go because in 2018 you still get those looks from people that look at interracial couples or marriage. Uh, how come we haven't surpassed that? I mean, I brought up earlier about the media and how they display their dislike and also bring on propaganda with interracial marriages. With the Prince Henry getting married and the different reality shows out here that little girls like to look at. How come we haven't gone past, what the media is out here putting out?
It's I think it's more so because of tradition, like I said, with the family structure. Because racism isn't, you're not born with racism, you're taught racism, and everything that's learned starts from the home, right? It starts from your family. And if your family has a certain belief, it's gonna trickle down to the kids. Now, fortunately, we're in an age where more kids are thinking for themselves, and that's why we're even at a stage where there is interracial dating on such a strong level. But like I said, it still goes back to the family structure where you have the older aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents and so on that still have that traditional mentality where you have to stick with your own. So that's one aspect of it. And the second aspect is actually from the environment themselves. It's the environment itself, because there are some communities where it's, I'm just gonna be blunt, it's nothing but white people, and it's like a few black people in the actual environment. And if you grew up in that structure, that's all you're used to seeing. You know what I'm saying? Like the few black people that you see, they're not amongst you. They're either working or they're doing this, or they're not amongst your circle. So when you see somebody amongst your circle going with that race, that's where the weird and funny look comes from, because it's like you're stepping out of and probably going lower than what you're used to. So it's a lot, but I think the strongest point to that is the family structure, more so than society. If we break that chain, and stop thinking like the older folks, then it's gonna be a huge shift in society in general.
Right. But you make a good point, because basically, like what I brought up before about, because remember, the media, the social media, or any media outlets hold a strong neck hold on how they perceive people marrying outside their race. I understand that you can have a strong home structure where your aunts and your grandparents, they want to be able to show you that, hey, we need to stick with our own race. But I feel that the media can strongly persuade people to go outside and think outside the box. And some people feel like there's nothing wrong with that. Love is love. You can't control who you love. But you have different people of different races who feel that they need to stick with their own. Now, is there anything wrong with that? I feel there's nothing wrong with people sticking with their own. Because you made a good point about your environment, your geographical environment. If you're in a predominantly black neighborhood, more than likely you're going to date, within your race. And vice versa, if you're in a predominantly white neighborhood, you're going to more than likely date within your own race.
Right.
It's when you step outside of your comfort zone, you begin to become more influential and become more curious as to, people who do not look like you, mingle with them, and then you become to fall in love or or become attracted to people who do not look like you. Because there was one time, in history where there was no such thing as race.
Right.
You know,
It was class.
it was just class. Back because this whole race thing started in the 17th century. That's when the word race came about, and just the only thing it described was just the physical traits.
Right. But even though in some or most, probably most third world countries, that's what they use to define or create separation. You know what I mean? Which is classism, because they're all black. So if you're at an upper class, and you're dating somebody that's in the ghetto, for example, that's frowned upon. So it's the same. So, but that's why I think it still goes back to the root, which is the family structure, and the environment.
Yeah, exactly. Because I want to give more of a example that the listeners can, look in on and research themselves. But just like an example, there's many examples out there as far as what we're talking about here. But there was one point in time where blacks and whites lived amongst each other. I'm talking about in the ancient world. There was no such thing as a race. It was just they would use different terminology to describe a person's physical traits, but they didn't use those physical traits that they described as an individual as race. Like we talked about, race is it's a young term. It was only brought up and invented back in the 17th century. So beyond that, you had people who, lived amongst each other. There was black Romans. There were black Europeans. There were, every time someone talk about the Roman Empire, they always think about just Europeans, but they all lived amongst each other. And you have, I don't know, people may know about the Moors, but the Moors, they taught women how to bathe. The men who bathed the women, and so they wouldn't have any come up with any type of diseases. They had to mingle with the women. Come on now, the women are not clothed; they're bathing them, and they had sexual relations with them. So there was a point in time where there was intermingling with, black men or women were intermingling with the European descent, who were called the Moors. So this goes way back. This goes back, the 7th century, where you have men of African descent going into Europe and showing them their culture and how they know about mathematics and science and cleanliness and hygiene and so forth. And in the midst of doing all these things and showing them and teaching them different things, they also develop a relationship, because they stepped, like we talked about before, they stepped outside of their comfort zone and mingled with people that did not look like them. But there was no such thing as race. They didn't frown on them because they were different. They intermingled.
Right.
So how you feel about?
So you're saying the difference then is intermingling compared to now, where it's more looked at as being rebellious in a sense.
It's being rebellious now. It's being because they were trained because of this whole race name, this whole race term. There was like we talked about, we came to conclude on earlier, that race is just a word to describe a physical type or a group of people. Right. But there's different terms back in the day, in the ancient world, that describe like your social class, or describe your physical attributes. So I say all that to say this. I think that.
So the strongest influence then has to be the media.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
The strongest influence is the media, because
they created the actual
the divide.
The divide by race.
Right.
And then the family structure and the environment is just following what was presented to them.
Exactly.
And just kind of keeping it alive, basically.
Keeping it alive when it don't have to be alive. People should be able to be who they want to be with, because you're going to integrate. It's just going to happen. It happens in the past, and it can happen now. The only thing is the powers that be don't want that type of structure, because they know that at one point in time there was a structure where, yeah, you did have a group of people who were stuck to themselves and stayed in their own genotypes, and then you had people that also integrated and wanted to mingle with people that did not look like them. So right now, as a society, the media has a threshold on everything that we do, if we allow them to. So how you feel about the media? Because the media is really big on this whole topic, man.
I mean, it's kind of tricky. You know what I mean? It's kind of tricky. I think once, even with the media putting the whole race thing out there, we as a society, we have to change the narrative. Because the media could say whatever, and they could paint a picture and so on, but it's up to society to kind of believe it and run with it. You understand what I'm saying? So when, going back to the whole race argument, where they say, okay, you have this race, you have that race, and they shouldn't intermingle and so on and so forth. If that was, say, pushed by society, and that picture was painted to society from the media, you as a person, for you to believe that and run with it, I felt like that's your personal choice. Like, you really feel that way.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of white people really feel like that, even without society, even without the media. I'm sorry, kind of pushing that. They really do feel that way. So
right.
the narrative still has to be changed at some point, where it's fine to see a black person with a white person, or an Indian person with a Chinese with a white. The narrative has to change where that's not such a big deal.
But let me you about to bring up a good point. Let me bring this up. Now, the narrative with a white man dating a black woman, or a black man dating a white woman, is that narrative more frowned upon than an Indian dating an Asian?
I don't know. When you say more frowned upon,
like when someone who is what you call a racist, someone who is disagrees with people dating outside their race, when they see a black person dating a white person, is that
this
frowned
person
upon?
that's racist? What are they?
They can be either black or white.
Black or white.
Doesn't matter, right? And well, a black person, that's another discussion. But black people cannot be racist. They can have their own viewpoints on something and be discriminative towards something. They can't be racist. That's another topic, another time. But let's just say a white person is racist about seeing a black person dating a white person.
They're gonna be more upset than seeing a white person dating a Chinese person.
Right, or an Indian dating a white, like an Indian dating Asian or whatever. Basically someone outside of the black and white so-called race.
Right.
They're more frowned upon seeing someone dating a white person, a black person dating a white person. Like, do you see that more often than?
No, I wouldn't say it's more frowned upon, because it's relative, right? Because if that white person is racist towards black people, yeah, he's gonna frown. He's gonna show more resentment towards a white person dating a black person. But what if he's racist towards Asians and he's okay with black people? Then he's gonna.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And then the second
Wait.
part of that is also the cultural impact, because Asians and Indians, they have their tradition as well. So if an Indian girl dates a black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. As long as they're not dating within the Indian culture, that's frowned upon. So
Right.
yeah, so I don't think is more, or like you may feel like it's more or less because the stigma is more towards
That's
black
what
and
I'm
white.
saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was trying to get at. Because you're talking on the individual tip. I'm talking more of a broad, from what the media persuasion of as interracial marriage. They mostly talk upon black and white,
yeah.
not anything outside that. Because if you go into a restaurant that has a mixed culture of black and white people, and then
But but you're looking at it from America's perspective. That's what I'm
no,
trying
no,
to say.
no, worldwide.
Yeah, it can.
Worldwide.
I mean,
But, well,
I don't,
for example, if here in America, what I'm talking about, I don't think really exists. Because if you go out, let's say you go to an Asian country, right? Let's go to Japan. If you see a black and white couple in Japan, they're gonna look at you crazy
right.
because their population is predominantly, Asian descent, right? But if you're here in Idaho and you see a black person with a white person and they walk into a restaurant, they're gonna stare at them, right?
Right.
Same thing if you go to a predominantly black neighborhood in Atlanta. If a white person comes in there with a black woman, or, a black man coming in a predominantly black restaurant and with a black woman, that stigma's gonna happen. But if it's an Asian person with an Indian, you're not really gonna look at them like that.
If it's an Asian person and an Indian person going
to a predominantly black restaurant establishment,
right? But
you're not really gonna like have those people.
But that's
really observe
point.
Black couple.
But that's the point, though. You know what I'm saying? Because you're in a predominantly black restaurant, right? And you're bringing in another black person with somebody that's not black. That's where the look comes from, because they're expecting that black person to walk through the door with somebody else black. That's why it's predominantly black. But if an Asian or Indian comes in, they don't really care, because that's just not what they're expecting. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
So
that's what I'm saying. Both sides don't look upon, like, both sides. What I mean by both sides saying black and white.
All right. Let me change it a little bit. If the black person came into the restaurant, the predominantly black restaurant, with an Asian woman, wouldn't they get the same look?
If that Asian woman came in with what, a black man?
If the black man came in with the Asian woman
in a predominantly black establishment,
wouldn't they get the same look?
No, it's not. You won't have the same stigma. I don't.
You wouldn't
personally. I wouldn't.
You don't think they
would
have the same look as if they would have came in with a white woman?
With a white woman, no.
Really?
White woman, you will have more of a stigma of what this society brings, because society brainwashed black people too now. It's not just white people being brainwashed with who you should date. So if I see a black man come in with the Asian woman, it's not that big of a deal.
Why is it not that big of a deal?
Well, because first, when you know your history, you know that Asian, depending on, well, I don't want to get too in details with different types of Asians, because there's a lot of Asians who have African descent in them, right? But it's this country, when we're talking about this country as far as being in a black establishment, it's all about black and white. Anything else outside of that is null or void. So if that black person coming over with a white woman, I bet you that waitress is going to have some type of either ill will attitude towards them versus that black person coming in with a white woman. I mean, with an Asian person. Not saying that they're gonna. I'm just saying there's a level to it. Not saying they won't have any type of stigma towards an Asian person in that establishment, but I'm talking about the level that you get from people in that establishment is more towards seeing that black man with the white woman than it is with the Asian. It's heightened more.
But taking away the level, yeah, I mean, I disagree with you completely on that. You know what I mean? But taking away, maybe this is where we need to bring like a panel in to have, a black woman and a white woman kind of give their input, right? But taking away the level, it's just about the reaction. You know what I'm saying? Once they walk through that door and they get a reaction that's a negative reaction, it doesn't matter if that negative reaction lasts 2 minutes compared to the white and black couple where it lasts 5 minutes. That would be the level, right? It's just about the reaction, period. Because why is there even a reaction to that? It should be normalized at a point where if it was a black man and a black woman that walked in, it would just say, okay, you would just look to see who walked in and then turn back around. But when you look and you see the black and white, it triggers something. When you see the black and the Asian, it triggers something.
Yeah. This both triggered, right?
Right. So that's the main thing. It doesn't matter if it's a level or a stigma is pushed because it's more black and it's more white. I think just the basic reaction is the main focus, and that goes across the board with any culture as far as outside of their norm. Indian, Asian, Russian, whatever it is, Italian, that's another one. Anything outside of their norm triggers a reaction. So it's bigger than just black and white. Like, black and white is what's pushed to us from the media, like you said, but that doesn't mean that if an Indian girl goes and dates a white man, her family's gonna accept that more than if she would have went to a black man. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it still comes back down to tradition in my eyes. I mean, the media pushes the black and white agenda more for whatever reason, but the actual topic of dating outside of your race.
Well, I already know the reason. Because
of why they push black and white.
Yeah, because why they push this whole "Make America Great Again." Because America was pushed on being white.
Right.
You know that.
Right. Yeah.
This country was predicated on a white society, and anyone outside of that will be castrated.
Right.
So,
but I'm just more curious as to why, because I understand America as far as whites, black and white.
Right. Because that's all we can really speak on. That's all we can really speak on. Because any other country, it's still predominantly it's inherited. So, for example, you have people in the Caribbeans, or people in South America, or people in the Asian countries. It's predominantly their inhabitant cultures that are going to not really be frowned upon anyone dating outside their race. Versus here in America, it's really pushed. I think it's pushed even harder here than any other countries. The media pushing that.